Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Secret Origins of Mint Condition. I am one of your hosts, James, and joining me is Joe.
Hey, folks, how you doing?
And we have a returning guest with us today. He is a New York Times best-selling author, writer of some of our most beloved characters and franchises that we talk about on this show. So we're very excited to have back Michael Jan Friedman is with us.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Thanks, Mike, for coming back. We really
Sure.
enjoyed having you on last time, and we're excited to talk to you this time. I think last time you were on, we were talking about your Kickstarter for The Phenomenons, Volume 2, which I backed that Kickstarter, so I'm excited. That should be coming out soon, right?
Yeah. I actually, it's a timely question. I actually got the boxes on my porch today. So I'm
Cool.
going to bring them to a convention, Farpoint, in about 10 days, and get them signed by the writers, and then I'll start sending them out.
Oh, very exciting. Yeah, when we had you on last, I had just actually was reading through Volume 1. I loved all the characters and stories in there, and having you on, I was like, I gotta continue on with this anthology. So I really enjoy it. So I'm looking forward to part 2 when I get it.
Yeah, and you won't be disappointed. There's some great work in there, and some interesting turns in the evolutions of the characters.
And it's still all interconnected, like the first one, right?
Still more interconnected than ever. I mean, we have
Cool.
stories that have like 4 and 5 of the phenomenons in one story, and a lot of interplay between the stories, and it actually that'll just pick up from volume to volume.
Oh, excellent. Oh, so there's going to be more, right? Hopefully.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Oh, okay.
We're already talking about volume 3, and the writers that I've assembled are already driving me crazy with regard to volume 3.
Well, very nice. I look forward to that. And then, but we have, before we dive into other stuff, you have a new Kickstarter up for Thelas and Other Stories, and this is just all your stuff, right? It's not it's a bunch of stories, but they're all written by you, right?
Right. It's Thelas and
Thelas. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I made up the name, so you could pretty much pronounce it any way you want. But actually, yeah, this is a collection of my own short fiction. It's the 4th collection that I've done of short fiction, and I've gotten great responses to the others, and so far this is going well as well. Thelas, the lead story, is science fiction, sort of a Star Wars-ish science fiction, almost like a space western, but with its roots in Greek mythology. So as you're reading it, if you're paying attention carefully, you'll say, "Wait a second, I remember that's in a myth." And wait a second, there's that thing. So if they go to I get it. So there's that subtext of events and characters in Greek mythology.
Oh, that's very
interesting.
cool. Yeah,
Do I need to pull out my Bullfinch's mythology, Michael?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I like you use a lot of mythology in your stories. I mean, so I like that you have that theme running through your work a little bit.
I do. I like mythology. The first 3 books I ever did was a trilogy based on Norse mythology, and in fact, that's an add-on reward. Is that trilogy called the Vidar Saga? It's available in ebook form or paperback, and so that was the first thing I ever did for Warner Books. And I got the rights back recently, and I re-released it with new art on the covers, and it's pretty. The art's pretty impressive.
Wow. Is that available? I mean, aside from the Kickstarter that you get with the Kickstarter, is that available on Amazon or Crazy 8 Press also to get?
It is.
Okay.
I mean, of course, it's not autographed, but yes, you can get it through Crazy 8. You can get it through Amazon. You can also get it through BarnesandNoble.com.
Oh, cool. Yeah, we since you've been on last time, we've been we inspired us to go back and revisit some of your stuff. But Joe's been like devouring a bunch of your books, right, Joe?
Well,
Hmm.
I finished just recently, yesterday. I finished Empty Space.
Uh-huh.
Loved
Oh,
it.
cool.
And oh, the artwork is amazing, Michael. The I cannot pronounce the artist's name. I don't want to. How do you pronounce
Caio,
his name?
he's a Brazilian artist. His name is Caio Cacau.
Wow, just an amazing story. Chock full of action, but still there's a there's a message there. It's deep. There's a mystery. It's I don't know. Is it Star Trek meets aliens and some other stuff thrown in? But it's just really cool, and
Yeah,
I enjoyed it. And I just love the whole idea of the of well, we're in deep space and we can't replenish our crewmen, so we need to reanimate them, and then from there, you know, all hell
yeah,
breaks loose.
yeah. That's good. That's a good summary of what happened.
Thank
Um,
you.
yeah,
Yes, it,
I had a lot of fun with that. And in fact, I'm going to do something about a year from now. I'm going to do something different. I'm going to write a sequel or offer as on Kickstarter a sequel to the graphic novel Empty Space. But the sequel will be a prose novel.
oh, great. Well, put me down. I'll, I'll be the I'll be the first one.
So that'll be, that'll be interesting. Honestly, I don't know what kind of response I'll get. It's not maybe not a unique move, but certainly an unusual one. So we'll see.
Well, I have to know the next what happens in the next chapter of Robinson Dark's life. It's
Right.
a pretty amazing life he's led, and I don't want to give it away here and spoil it for other readers. I'll just say, folks, go out there and pick up a copy of Empty Space. You will not be disappointed. It's a great read, it really is.
Thank you.
And you're welcome. And I also, Michael, I read My Brother's Keeper, the trilogy.
Mm,
Oh wow, those were fantastic. I've always been a fan of the second Star Trek pilot, Where No Man Has Gone Before,
right.
and even as a kid, as a young man, I wished to see that I could see more of Gary Mitchell, and you fulfilled my my 50-year wish. It's a great story and a great. So my question is, did you when you sat down to write this, did you was it always going to be a trilogy in your head, and to flesh out this great friendship, this bromance between Jim Kirk and Gary Mitchell?
I think so. I think it was always going to be a trilogy. Um,
Hmm.
I wanted to, and I also knew that I wanted to intersperse um, the events in that were dramatized in the episode with um, the present or the Star Trek present, the original
Hmm.
series present, and uh, and what happened in the various stages of their relationship in the past. So that was something I wanted to play with. The first thing that occurred to me when I decided to outline that series, because we had to do an outline for everything, and it had to be
Sure.
approved by Paramount before it was approved by Pocketbooks. The first thing I thought of, the scene that was really crystal clear in my mind, was Kirk going to see Gary's
Of
parents.
course. Uh,
And here, on the record, Gary's died in the line of duty, and of course, they're very proud of him, and it's Kirk, and they love Jim Kirk. They love him. He's Gary's
mhm.
best friend, and Kirk has to go and tell them the truth that he was the one who killed Gary.
As I was reading these three novels, Michael, that's the scene I was anticipating so much because to borrow a line from I think the first Star Trek film, which is I'm not a fan of,
Uh-huh.
the motion picture, but the human adventure continues, and that's what makes these novels and Star Trek so great and so fulfilling is that amidst all the space the science fiction and the space opera. There's this story of humanity going on, and Kirk is struggling with how he's going to tell these people, not only
Hmm.
that he was the one who had to kill his son to basically save the galaxy. And
Right.
it's a very touching moment. I like the fact that you placed him living in New York City. Was
Hmm.
it on the Upper East Side or West Side? I'm not sure. I don't remember.
I
Yeah,
I don't remember.
yeah, but that was kind of cool. I like that little touch. But it was a very touching moment and a very very fulfilling moment to cap off the trilogy. So it's just fun to read. And
Thanks.
you're welcome. And I just recently finished Legacy
Oh,
because
Legacy. Right. Right. Sure.
that was a lot of fun too. We got to read about Captain Pike also. So
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Captain Pike is so much fun. Not and not just for me, but for other Star Trek writers. Like we all wait for the opportunity to write a Captain Pike story, and that hmm, might have been the first, or maybe at most the second Captain Pike story in the context of the prose publishing program.
Oh,
I think
I didn't know that.
maybe there was one before that, but then my friend Peter David did one, and others have done, and of course, since Strange New Worlds came out, there were
Hmm.
other Pike novels.
Yeah. No, it was excellent just to see um, the entire the way he just moved the chess pieces around the board in that novel. Kirk and his crew trapped on Alpha Octavius, and the
Mm,
Enterprise has to dash off to what's it, Beta Cabrini? Yeah,
mm,
and Spock has to tackle this enemy, this Marauder Dream that
mhm.
he saw years ago fly against his then captain Pike. It's just beautifully staged, and it was a fun read. So,
Thank you, thank you.
oh, you're welcome.
It's interesting. There are always some um, interesting pieces of art, Star Trek art history, in these books and comics. Um, on the cover, um, they they have uh, the alien, right, the
Mm-hmm.
villain, and the model for the villain, because the artist, Keith Birdsong, was a tremendous likeness artist, but it was very hard for him to do um, original faces, particularly aliens. So he used Jack Palance as the model.
I'm looking at it right now. You're right. Wow. I was thinking of a young Mark Leonard at first, but yeah, Jack Palance. Yes. Wow.
The
Yeah.
other interesting thing, when in terms of Pike, is I did a Pike story um, for a Star Trek annual, and uh, an original series annual,
Mm-hmm.
and the partway through it, they realized, DC realized that Paramount didn't have likeness rights
Oh God.
for Pike.
Holy cow.
So what are they going to do? So they put a mustache on it,
Okay, why not?
right?
Yeah.
Now, if you now, but now, wasn't it? It was in Strange New Worlds, right? Didn't they have a
Mhm.
mustache on? Was it on Pike?
Oh, Sam Kirk had a
Oh,
mustache.
Sam Kerr. Yeah, Sam
Sam
Kerr had a
Kirk, right.
mustache. It was like a mustache joke that kind of evolved from that. And so I wonder if anytime somebody shows up with a mustache in Strange New Worlds, if it has something to do with that original likeness right problem.
Probably does.
Well, that reminds me of a story I heard Neil Adams say that when he was doing the cover for Muhammad Ali versus Superman,
Right.
they DC wanted to get permission from all the actors that he put on there. He's like, "Are you guys out of your mind?"
Mm.
And they came back with a long list of people who said no. So he's like, "I didn't redraw them. I just put a mustache on everyone, and that's how I."
Well, except for Lucille Ball.
Except for Lucy
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Michael, I dove into since we last spoke. I read the crossover, which I
Mhm.
really enjoyed. it was great seeing the classic era characters and the era with the next generation. So I'd never read it before. I always wanted to, and after speaking to you last time, I was really inspired to go pick it up, and that was a great story too.
But thank you. Yeah. That was fun. Um, yeah, it had and my editor at the time, Kevin Ryan, had some great suggestions that went into that, and contributions, and one of them was there's a scene where the Romulans are trying they realize Spock is in their grasp, but they don't know which of their captives is Spock, and there's a scene that we kind of borrowed from Exodus,
Hmm.
where uh, Spock, of course, is ready to admit that he's Spock because, that'll save everyone else. But before he can do that, someone else comes up and says, "I'm Spock," and someone else says, "I'm Spock, I'm Spock, I'm Spock," and it was reminiscent of this scene in Exodus where they're looking for a particular Israeli revolutionary. Well, not Israeli because there was no Israel yet, but a particularly Jewish revolutionary, and everybody starts changing clothes so that you can't tell which one he is. And this is, I'm Spock, I'm Spock, and it also harkens back to Spartacus, right?
Yes.
I'm
Yeah,
Spartacus, I'm Spartacus,
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
Spartacus.
Oh.
So, you gotta, if you're gonna steal, you steal from the best.
Oh, there you go.
Absolutely. Well, I like that story also because I think it's the only time we really get to see Spock actually working to help the Romulans. I mean, they obviously brought it up in the Next Generation episode, and he talked about it, I think, a little bit in the J.J. Abrams reboot a little bit, but it was nice to actually see him doing the work in that book,
Hmm.
and obviously seeing him reunited with McCoy and Scotty in there was a lot of fun too.
Right, right. And we could only do that, of course, after all three of them had been introduced on screen, right? So they established early on, very early on, that McCoy was alive in the period of the Next Generation, and then they established that Scotty was in Relics, and
Mhm.
then they established that Spock was in Unification. So once we had all three of them in that era, we were able to come out with a book including them. Prior to that, we couldn't.
Oh,
Interesting.
was that book your idea, or someone they asked you to do it? How did that book manifest based on what you just said, where they had to appear on screen first?
Yeah. Again, Kevin was the editor, and um, I I honestly don't remember which of us came up with the premise, but then I pretty much took it from there. But he made some big contributions to that book.
Yeah, I mean, well, this actually, we collected some questions for you from our audience. So actually,
Hmm.
Steve Perel, who I don't know if you remember Steve Perel from Mint Condition. I think he worked on Sundays. Was that his day, Joe? Sundays?
Sundays was the day that he was, day of the week he was mostly there, yes. Mhm.
Yeah. So Steve was asking, wanted to know, based upon crossover, and maybe you just explained it. Was there ever talk of including Uhura or Chekhov or Sulu, or either in that book or doing another book where they met the next generation crew in real time?
Um, uh, yeah, I did answer it. Actually, it's only because those other three had been established in the Next Generation on screen that we were able to use them. Uhura hadn't, and Chekhov and
Right.
Sulu, none of them had been established in the Next Generation, so we could.
Okay, yeah, because I guess actually that also ties into something that Josh Murray, who's been a guest on the show and is a listener, he was asking because he's a writer, and he was asking sort of, since you work with so many franchises and properties, I guess when you're writing the Star Trek books at the time, they kept their canon and continuity pretty tight, right?
They did, they did. Sometimes a little too tight.
Mm.
I mean, we in the comics we came up with some weird feedback. Like we, in the comics, if you have a in the old days, if you had a character thinking, you'd have a thought bubble. But more recently, you would have a caption, right? And the caption would reveal the character's thoughts. Like I wish number one wouldn't play his music so loud or something like that, right?
The
And
saxophone.
I can't sleep when he's doing that. Anyway, so there's a thought in the caption, and when we started the next generation comic, one of the comments we got from Gene Roddenberry's office, which was a separate layer of approvals, was our characters don't think. And I got what they were saying, like on the show, you very seldom hear the character's thoughts unless it's a telepath, and
Right.
you're trying to dramatize that. But I got it, but it was also a comic, and they didn't quite grasp that. So
That's interesting.
eventually they did, but it was a negotiation. Our characters don't think.
You gotta negotiate
The
for the
other
characters to
thing,
think.
and that happened a lot, was a few characters had likeness rights, but Patrick Stewart did, and he had approval over how he looked in the comic, and invariably the artist, who's a great artist, Pablo Marcos, would would draw Picard with a fair amount of hair, you know, like a fringe of a nice thick fringe of hair, and Patrick would always complain, like too much hair, too much. And then we'd have a guy, an inker in the office at DC, who would come in, Arnie Starr, and he would come in and give Patrick a haircut so
Oh,
that
that's funny.
Patrick would approve, his likenesses.
That seems to be not a trend, but a job that's in every bullpen in comic books. I remember hearing stories about Marie Severin back in the day at Marvel Comics. She used to go and touch up other people's artwork and fix things.
Hmm,
And that was her main job. Yeah. So
right, right.
I'm just amazed Patrick Stewart like is that involved. He's looking at his images in like a
yeah,
monthly
right.
ongoing Star Trek comic. That's see,
Yeah, yeah. Listen,
I hope he was reading them at least too at the same time.
I hope so too. We never got a comment about that, but about the stories, uh,
That's interesting.
but he did comment on his hair. It's fun.
That's
well,
funny.
that goes to like Josh Murray was asking you also, since you obviously Star Trek, you've written a lot of Star Trek, but you've written Marvel characters and you've written things like Aliens and Predator. When you like, how much I guess leeway do you have with the individual properties in terms of what you can create and add to the universe in terms of like canon or going off on your own, I guess tangents and storylines with the characters?
It varies. It varies. There are some companies where, they like Paramount, where they look at each and every little nuance. And by the way, that's not always a bad thing because they're checking you, and
Hmm.
that it's an extra layer of scrutiny, and sometimes you screw up and they catch it, and that's not a bad thing. Um, but it depended on the company. Sometimes they could care less, and other times, the scrutiny was heavy. Um, when I did the novel adaptation of the Batman and Robin movie, the Clooney and the Schwarzenegger um, movie, um, I made a lot of changes, and in order to move the movie away from the campy version of Batman and more toward the Denny O'Neil
Hmm.
Dark Knight version, and Warner was okay with everything I did. Really, like for instance, I wanted Batman to be more like an urban legend. So in the movie, instead of showing up at the flower ball with Robin, uh,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
I had them disguised. They were disguised as janitors, and then when the time came, they appeared as Batman and Robin. But to kind of preserve that urban legend feel. But
Hmm.
so they let me do things like that. The one thing they wouldn't let me do, in the most recent Batman iteration, it's the Batman, right?
Right.
Which is how he was described in the original comics. He was the
Hmm.
Batman. So I figured in the novel adaptation, I would I would call him the Batman. The one thing they didn't like was the definite article, right? No, he's Batman. He's not the Batman. So they took out all the does and put the Batman. And I think I lost like a page and a half of the manuscript losing all the does. But different licensors um, paid different levels of attention to what we were doing. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the the uh, Predator people were not paying that close attention. We had a fair amount of leeway as far as what we could do with that.
Interesting. Interesting.
Hmm.
I mean, I have to. I had heard you mention this because I know you've been on a bunch of recent interviews. I'm talking about that Batman and Robin book, and I actually want to go out and get it because Batman and Robin's the only movie I almost walked out of, and I don't know if you would feel comfortable saying this, but I'll say it. I'm sure whatever you've written, even though I haven't read it, is way more brilliant than what they put on screen.
It
So
has to be. It
That's
has to be.
that's what I always say. I always say it's much better than the movie. I don't care what you think of it; it's still better than the movie.
all
Yeah.
those freeze jokes. Oh my god.
The other
Uh,
thing is, I was able to put in a fair amount of interesting backstory in the Batman and Robin book. Um, an encounter between Batman, the guy who would become Batman, and the guy who would become Mister Freeze, um, before they met on the field of battle, as it were, and uh, I was able to dramatize, that formative scene for Batman where his parents are killed. I think everybody who writes Batman in any form wants to write that scene. So I got to do that. Um, so I was able to put in a lot of good stuff that wasn't in the movie, and then kind of soft pedal a lot of stuff that was kind of embarrassing in the movie.
I yeah, I have to see if I can get a used copy because I don't think it's in print. But I was like, I'm gonna read this book because
Mhm.
like
I'm going to read it now too. Yeah.
yeah, I have to like
I,
cleanse my mental palate of that movie, even though
I
it's been so
also
long since I saw it.
also noticed when I was checking out your bibliography, Michael, that you wrote three, not one, not two, but three Lois and Clark novels.
Yeah, that's true. It's
Uh,
true. I
I
did.
love that show. That is my favorite live action iteration of Superman on TV, and I have to find them now.
You
I,
know, first of all, that assignment was a bitch
I
because
bet.
because I would propose ideas and they would just getting turned down left and right at DC, and
Wow.
I finally got some approved, but it was very hard. And On the other hand, the editor there was Charlie Kochman, who became a great friend. So because we were going through hell together trying to get ideas approved. So that actually turned out, aside from the books, it turned out to be a great thing because I got to be friends with Charlie.
Were you a fan
Charlie,
of the show, Michael?
I'm sorry.
Were you a fan of the show?
I was. I
Yeah.
was. I mean, I can't say I saw every episode, but I really listen. It was the only Superman on television,
Exactly.
and and Terry Hatcher was Terry Hatcher, and
James knows how I feel about Terry Hatcher.
and it was great. It was, yeah, yeah. No, I was a fan of the show.
I mean, with most of the work with the properties and franchises you asked, and this is actually like something else that that Josh brought up as a question for you. Do you usually gravitate or get offers from things you already know, or has there ever been like a property or character you've had to do like research for prior to writing a book on them?
Yeah, it could happen either way. I mean, Star Trek, I knew Star Trek.
Mm.
I wasn't quite as familiar with aliens um, or predators. Uh, I had seen the movies, of course, but not recently, and so I had to go back and see them and read a little bit of what had been written about them previously. So that was something I had to research, and yeah, I mean, sometimes even in a franchise, you want to write something obscure, and so you have to go back um, into that niche and do the research. I mean, but the research is usually a lot of fun. I wrote um, a book called Shadows of the Past, which was an X-Men novel, and uh, and that was great because I had to go back and read these early X-Men comics, you know, to learn, relearn about the villain, who I won't mention, and um, so that was a lot of fun. It was about the original five X-Men in
Oh, okay. Cool.
in the in the present with regard to where they were in the comics at the time.
I'll have to take a look at that. I saw that too. That you written that. I was like, that's another book I got to pick up and read. I mean, as speaking like just of Marvel and the stuff you've done for Marvel with the different books, are those books like is Marvel very guarded about their canon and what you do for the novelizations, or do you have a lot of free reign in terms of when you're putting those books together?
I would say my personal experience with Marvel, they were pretty good. They, I respected them, and if you respect the franchise, if you do your research, that goes a long way. It's like everybody says when you go to France, the French are terrible to tourists, but if you try to speak French, you know they'll be okay with you. And I think it's the same type of thing with when you write for for in this case for Marvel. The guys who represented Marvel in the publishing process were good, because they saw that I was really trying to be to stay in line with what had been established in the comics. So they were okay. Usually if you try, you usually get a good response.
I always wonder with the book when they do novelizations, because I remember when Marvel started coming out with novelizations of their characters, it was like, are these set in the I mean, they're set in the comic book universe, but are they part of like the runs? Or these stories that take place in the continuity of the comic books? But so it's good to know that you have like sort of a little bit of freedom when you're writing those books to kind of, I guess, the audience can kind of place them wherever they want in the story, unless you're, I guess, referencing specific elements in the comic book itself.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you once in a while, like when I was writing the Next Generation comic, and again, I was knowledgeable about what was going on, but that was a moving target because they were producing shows at the same time we were producing comics.
Comic book, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I would give them like six plots at a time, and they would say, "Yeah, these four are good. This five you can't do because we're doing it, and six you can't do, and we can't tell you why." So
Did you ever find
that
out
was
why you couldn't do it?
eventually I did. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
they say, "Oh, okay, that character gets killed before
Ah,
before you want to use him, um, or some transformation that you didn't anticipate. Um, they get maimed or they get married or something like that. Um, something where you'd be in conflict with the continuity that they're establishing. But that was the
Interesting.
hardest. That was the hardest thing because you didn't know, and sometimes even they didn't know. I did a a 4-issue set called Shadowheart, based on um, Worf's human brother, because it was established that he had a human brother.
Mm-hmm.
And I came up with this human brother and a whole plot that involved, Klingons and um, and by the way, this is one of the add-ons that you can get in the Thelas and Other Stories campaign. You can get this set of 4 autographed as an add-on to the reward. In any case, so I had a story about Worf's brother, and they Paramount approved the idea, and I had written like 2.5 scripts already. The first 2 had been approved. One was penciled and inked. The other one was, just being laid out. And then they said, wait a second, we just got a script. The licensing department, we just got a script with Worf's brother, and it's not this guy. So I had to rewrite the whole thing on the fly.
Wow.
Even though they'd already approved it, we couldn't come out with something that was going to conflict with what they were going to put on the screen.
And what they do with the pencils and ink
They threw
artwork?
them out.
They threw. Oh my God.
I mean, not all of them, because I was able to save some of them, but some of them we couldn't.
Wow.
Yeah, they ate it. DC, ate that work and what they paid for it. But that happens sometimes. Sometimes a project, goes to a point and then it doesn't, and the publisher has to eat the expense.
Well, I guess with a lot of the properties you've worked on, it seems like the rule is like the live action or theatrical version is the canon, and whatever's happening with that takes precedence over whatever is being written, I guess.
It definitely takes precedence. I mean, out of all the fans who watch Star Trek on a screen, whether it's a TV show or the movie, probably 10% of them make up the audience for books and comics, maybe less. So the screen product is definitely the dog, and the print product is definitely the tail.
I like the way you put that.
Well, speaking of like Star Trek, like I know the last time you were on, you hadn't caught up. I think from listening to you do that some other podcasts and videos, you've watched some of the recent Star Trek, and
Yeah.
Joe and I know I have some questions for you about that now that you've caught up a little bit. But since you've written pretty much for every era of Star Trek except like the newer stuff, what's your I guess overall take on newer Star Trek?
Well, I've written for 4 of the iterations. I've written. I never wrote for Enterprise. I wasn't a big fan of
Oh,
Enterprise, actually, but and I haven't written for any of the new iterations. What do I think of them?
yeah.
I think some of them are great. Strange New Worlds is great. Um, it's comfort food. It
Mm-hmm.
reminds me of the original in a lot of ways. The acting is great. Um, um, the the character, the scripts are great. There's a few things in terms of continuity that I would have done differently, but you know, I think Strange New Worlds I really like and I really look forward to. Picard I think has been uneven. You know,
Mm,
some of
yeah.
it's great, some of it not so great. Like in the first season, in the last episode, while when the shit hits the fan, Picard is taking a nap. I
I never got that far.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure whose idea that was, but and I hate the Klingons in Picard, and not in Discovery. I hate the
Discovery. Yeah.
Klingons in
Yeah.
Discovery. Um, I don't know why they decided that. I mean, I do. Everybody likes to have their contribution to Star Trek.
Sure.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
that's the Star Trek that so and so did. Yeah, I get it. But you know, why would you take people who have prosthetic pieces of makeup on, you know, and which makes it difficult for them to act, and then completely make it harder because now you've got a mask on instead of little pieces. You've completely taken away the actor's ability to act. All you can see is their eyes, and even those are kind of altered. So I really didn't like the Baroque Klingons. Um,
No.
but Discovery, it was good in the first season. Second season was even better, really, really good. Third season was a little flat to me, um, but by and large, I like what they're doing with the lower decks. I like again a little uneven, but a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun. Lower Decks is a lot of fun.
Yeah, um, and uh, and you got all the Easter eggs in lower decks. I mean, it's so many Easter eggs, uh, which contribute to the fun. So listen, you've got a lot of talented people um, doing meeting challenges um, and taking Star Trek that much further than it's been before, and not duplicating what everybody else is doing. So it's not easy.
No,
No, it's
it's a
not.
hard
Yeah.
task. Yeah. Have you checked out Prodigy at all?
Not really. Not because I don't want to. Not because I have anything against it, and someday I will. But you can only watch so many things, and there are
Mhm.
other things that are don't tell anyone. But I do watch occasionally something that's not Star Trek. Don't let that
That's
out.
okay. I do also.
Like I'm watching Pennyworth
Oh, I
these
haven't
days,
caught that yet.
and Pennyworth. I love Pennyworth. Not 100%. There's a few things I would do differently, but I think it's a really, it's Batman's butler
Mhm.
um, back in the day, and really interesting and really different.
You have to check that out. I saw that's on HBO Max now, right?
It is. It
Yes, it
is.
is. Yes. Hmm.
And I finished the first season, and it's just really good. It's just the characters are great. They've constructed an England that's not exactly the England that we're familiar with, but very interesting and English nonetheless. It's you look at it and you say, gee, it could have been this way. It wasn't quite this way, but it could have been. Um, so really, really interesting down to the accents and the the furnishings and the clothes and everything. It takes place like theoretically, I guess, in the early '60s, and the music is they name episodes after recording artists,
Oh,
contemporary,
really?
like recording artists of the day, and actresses, and it's interesting, quirky, and it has some interesting characters in it. Like you see Thomas Wayne and Martha Wayne before she became Martha Wayne.
Oh.
Hmm. Do
So
they? Oh, that's interesting. Do they have episodes named after, say, Springfield and Lulu?
they have. I mean, I could tell you they have. One episode was named Julie Christie. It's not
Okay,
even
there
named
you go.
after Julie Christie. The episode is Julie Christie. And
Julie
and then
Christie.
Julie Christie, as far as I can tell, doesn't even show up in the episode. But you know, it's kind of an interesting homage, or a form of homage. Uh,
I remember those days. I was around for the British invasion, and
mhm.
I love Dusty Springfield. I would love to just
Right.
maybe.
You know what? It could there could have been I didn't pay attention to all the titles, but there could have been a Dusty Springfield in there.
Yeah,
There was
cool.
a what's her name? I want to say Mary Ann Faithful. There was mm, somebody faithful, and I should know
Hmm.
that. But anyway, yeah, they have. It's just it's kind of James Bondy in a way.
Hmm.
It's kind of V for Vendetta in a way.
Oh,
It's kind of um, the '60s mod British invasion in a way. It's just it's its own thing, and it's really textured and interesting, and Alfred is a very compelling character as a young man.
Well, now I
Hey, you're
just have
selling
to
me
watch
on
it
the
now.
show, Michael.
Yeah, you just sold me, Michael. Yep, definitely.
Yep. Yep.
I'll just
Yep.
check it out. I'll say just because I brought it up, just because I was curious, because I recently finished season 1 of Prodigy, and I have to say, I love Strange New Worlds. I have my love for Picard, but Star Trek Prodigy is really good. It's really
Oh, good.
good.
Okay.
It's like more Star Trek than we've seen Star Trek be in a while. Again, not me putting down Star Trek of the new Star Trek, but it's very much in line with like the that next gen Voyager era of Star Trek. So
Hmm.
if you get a chance to check it out, I think it's worth a watch. And I was also bought in like aside. It's like 23 minutes an episode, which I'm like it's not too bad of a commitment to get into something.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, okay. All right. Good. Then I'm glad you said that. I will at some point certainly check it out.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious now that you brought up Pennyworth. What else are you watching outside of the Star Trek verse other than Pennyworth?
I watched the movie about the Super Pets, which I liked. The DC Super Pets with Crypto and who else is it? Batman,
Bat right? Is it Bat Hound?
Hound. Yeah, but he has a name.
Oh, Ace.
Ace the
Ace.
Bat Hound, right? Yeah,
Ace.
sure.
And
Yeah, that's it.
yeah. I mean, that was fun, and it was a good movie actually.
I'll check it
Um,
out.
I saw. What else did I saw? Black Adam, which, eh,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I
really like
agree,
a lot
Michael.
of
Yeah,
action and not a lot of motivation. And
too much green screen.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But I was happy to see Dr. Fate and Hawkman um, in real life, I guess. That was the best part of the movie for me
Yeah,
personally was to
it
see
was.
those two.
It was. They were great, and I kind of liked Smasher as well, and Cyclone. They were pretty good, but seeing, I thought Doctor Fate and Hawkman were done really well. So that was fun. But um, what else am I watching? What have I watched recently? I watched White Lotus, which is
Oh,
not superheroes or science fiction, and which I really didn't like that much. It was highly um, recommended, and I saw it, and I was like, I don't know. They're bringing up, they're starting arcs and not finishing them.
oh,
Like they just don't end, and I was like, what? Why did I watch that? For several episodes if it wasn't going to end. Um, so I didn't really like that. Um, there's a lot of stuff.
there is a lot of
There's a lot
stuff.
of stuff on.
Michael, do you have a preference of serialized to episodic television, or is it just the story that drives it?
Mm, no,
Okay,
no, I really don't.
because
Um,
we come from an era where it was all episodic mostly, right?
right,
So that's why
right.
we watch.
Um,
Little Joe could go blind in one episode of Bonanza and he'd be fine the next week.
yeah, right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't. I mean, I think obviously the serial format is the more popular one these days. But no, I think like if you watch the Jordan Peele's Twilight Zone, individual episodes, those
Mm.
were a little uneven, but those were mostly pretty good. And that's episode by episode. No, I really don't um, have a preference.
I like I think we've talked about this a lot because of Strange New Worlds, but I kind of like the format of going back to like Strange New Worlds is episodic, but it's really still like serialized because the character arcs still stay intact, but you're just telling different stories each week. I kind of like that
Kind of
version of
subplots.
storytelling.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's sort of what I did in my Stargazer series. I did a 6-book series with the Stargazer characters that invented um, for Star Trek Next Generation Reunion. Um, I came up, I had a little bit to go on from the episode The Battle, and so I knew a little bit about Picard's old ship, and I filled in all the gaps. And eventually, I did a 6-book series um, with Picard um, as captain of the Stargazer. It was in that era,
Mm.
and I had ongoing threads, some of which went through all 6 books, and then I had other things that happened just in an individual book. So I kind of did. I kind of split that difference in that series, and that was good. That was very comfortable for me, and I enjoyed writing that way.
Yeah, I have to check out. I have to check out those books too. Like, there's so many. Man, your catalog is so rich, Michael. There's so many things I want to
Yeah.
dive into. So,
You know,
um,
I'm thinking someday when when I get senile, I'll I'll go back and read my books, and because I won't remember any of them, and I'll have a lot of books to read.
that's great. Is there any, like, I guess mostly you're writing now. I mean, are you doing mostly just writing for the Crazy Eight Press, like your own characters and story, or are there still properties that you would like to write for that you haven't had a chance to yet?
There are properties that I'll probably write for, yeah. Um, but what our independent publishing affords me is the opportunity to write exactly what I want, exactly the way I
Mm.
want to write it. So that's a different muscle, and I really like that. For instance, and I can establish my own kind of ongoing franchises. For instance, in Thelas and Other Stories, you have a story in the milieu that I've come up with called City of a Thousand Gods. So this is a city kind of somewhere between a medieval and a Renaissance level city, and there are exactly 1,000 gods in this city, and they each have their own temple. And some are big gods, and some are little gods, and some are powerful and some are silly. But uh, I focus in each story. I focus on a different citizen in that realm. In one story, a young attorney because they have their own system of laws. In another story, in another of my collections, it's a private investigator because they have that as well. And in each story, it's you illuminate a different facet of that city from the point of view of someone else in it. Um, in Thelas and Other Stories, the City of a Thousand Gods story is about thieves, and it's fun because you have a bunch of thieves. They're all it's a little like the Over the Hill Gang, but they're all still good at thievery, and they when they sit around a tavern to shoot the bull, they steal from each other. You know, they go, oh well, you don't know that I took that thing from you, and the other guy goes, well, you don't know that the other guy has it now because he took it from you. So and that goes on throughout the story. So that's a lot of fun. Another ongoing franchise that I have in these short fiction collections is an homage to the Legion of Superheroes. It's called
Ooh.
Symphony of Enhanced Beings, and and what I do there is I focus on character stuff. Um, in the first story in that franchise is an epistolary story, which means it's a series of letters between two of the moms, because it's like the Legion. It's a group of teenage heroes, and these two moms are going at it back and forth with letters, and they get more and more heated, and it's interesting, it's fun, but a story emerges from this back and forth. Um, the the company of enhanced being story in Thelos is called Goni, and it's about in the Legion, um, Lightning Lad and Saturn Girl and Cosmic Boy all excuse me all have evil or villainous adult counterparts,
Yeah.
right? Which says something. I don't know. Like if you're an adult, you're a villain. I don't know. But anyway, and in Lightning Lad's case, I think it's his older brother. And so I have that story is about these two brothers, one of whom is in the company, and the other of whom is a criminal, and they're kind of fighting over the custody of their grandmother, their frail elderly grandmother, and she's been taken in by the older villainous brother, and the younger one is like, he's blindfolded and so on, and he goes to visit to make sure she's okay. And there's this conflict between the brothers over their grandmother, which is not something you typically see in the comics. But I really like to dig into that human side um, of larger than life characters.
That sounds
The,
great.
the Legion of
Yeah.
Superheroes is one of my favorite comic books of all time. I've got to check this out.
Yeah, yeah.
Homage to them. That sounds fantastic.
Now that starts in that's just new as part of the new Kickstarter, or that started in one of your original collected short stories.
I've had a story about the company in, I think, two of the three previous collections, and the one I just described is in this current collection that I'm kickstarting.
Oh, great! Well, I'll have to take a look at that. Yeah, I love the superhero stuff you do, Mike. I really enjoy it. So I'll have to take a look at the other short story volumes. I guess those are all up on Crazy Eight Press too.
Yes, yes, they are, and in fact, you can get them in the context of the Kickstarter. There's a
Oh,
couple,
you can. Oh, okay.
Oh,
yeah,
Well,
cool.
there's a couple of reward levels where you can get all four of the collections, um, either as a paperback or as an e-book collection. Uh,
oh, very nice. Very
Another
nice. Yeah.
story in Thelas is called Veneer, and it's also, I try to dig into the human side of superheroes, and very often these stories are inspired by my own physical deficiencies. Um, I have a form of claustrophobia where I can't tolerate being um, not just in close quarters, but if things are touching me, right? So if I, like we went on vacation years ago, and we had a crowded car with luggage and stuff like that, and it wasn't, after my turn to drive, I was supposed to go sit in the back, and I couldn't because I
Mm.
felt constrained. It's intolerable. So that's my craziness. But so what I did is I wrote a story about, we'll call him an Iron Man kind of character, and he gets older, and he's still able to do his Iron Man thing, but he's letting younger people do that, and he gets to be a grandfather, and he has the whole family to his place in Colorado, and then his worst enemy shows up and threatens to kill everyone unless his old nemesis shows up in his armor and comes out to fight, because he's gonna kick his butt and kill him to avenge all that time that he spent in prison. And it's called Veneer, and the Veneer character, he has to get out there in his armor and fight this guy and try to beat him, but certainly at least fight him, because otherwise his whole family is gonna be destroyed, and he can't get into the armor because he's developed this kind of claustrophobia that I have.
Oh,
And so the question
So
is,
cool.
what does he do then?
wow, that's great. This is in the current volume you're in the Kickstarter, right?
Right, right.
Wow, that's a great preview. That's a great preview.
Certainly
Listeners, you
is.
should go and support the Kickstarter. I
So
think when by the, we're going to put this out on this coming out today is February 1st. So what? How long do they have with the Kickstarter, Mike?
it goes through February 6th.
All right, so you have like 5 days, listeners, or 6 days to go and support the Kickstarter. Mike, before we wrap up, I just have one more question, and I guess it's kind of a timely question that's been going around the news. Jack Adrian, who's a regular guest on the show and was a customer of the store, he wanted to know your thoughts of what do you think of this whole Chat GPT thing that's going on?
The chat. Uh, um, Elaborate, please.
Oh, Chat GPT, it's that program that came out computer wise that people are using to
Oh,
write papers and
right, right,
ask
right,
Oh, I didn't know what
right.
that was either. Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
It's
the
funny.
AI thing.
the AI
Oh,
computer.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, what do I think of it? Well, I think it was inevitable, but I really don't like it. Um, when it comes to writing essays, I'm not sure essays are the best indication of what people know anyway. You could if you understand the structure, you can write a good essay and get by without really necessarily understanding what you're talking about. So it bothers me a little in that regard, but more so when it comes to writing and art. Um, it bothers me because AI will get to the point where if you want a new Hemingway book, AI will do it for you.
Hmm.
If you want to illustrate a comic and you've got a script, AI will do that too in whatever style. It'll be Jack Kirby, it'll be Steve Ditko, it'll be whatever you want.
Hmm.
But there's something disingenuous about it, and I'm not sure. You can't legislate against it, but I think um, readers um, can make the decision not to buy those products,
Right,
and I
not to
think you
support it. Right.
should. It's really it's not just that you're disenfranchising artists. You're kind of you're eliminating a possibility for human contact, uh,
Hmm.
maybe forever, and people should insist on that. The same way a lot of people say, I'm not gonna buy the packaged version of my favorite food. I'm gonna go and to a local place and get the home cooked version. With I'm not gonna go to the chain store. I'm gonna go to the local retailer. So, I think it's important to preserve that. We created Crazy Eight Press, which is our independent publishing group, um, in order to preserve the relationship between the reader and the writer. That's where the magic is. And if the reader's reading something that's not written by a human being, um, it's different. It's different. It may not be worse. It might be great, in terms of entertainment, but the intention, it's not a human intention, and that's to me not satisfying and honestly potentially dangerous. I
Yeah.
think there's a real danger from AI, um, uh, because you get to the point where you know the world's smartest computer creates a better computer,
Hmm.
and now you're ahead of humanity. I honestly think that's a danger. Um, but apart from that, I think the whole AI thing is it's disingenuous, and people ought to avoid it. And I'm not just saying that because I'm a writer.
No, I understand it. It makes me
Yeah.
think of two things from pop culture. One is the ultimate computer. Give my
Hmm.
regards to Captain Dunsel.
Hmm.
Right, Captain Kirk's being replaced by a DM5,
Hmm.
and a computer creating a greater computer. I'm thinking of the Computo in the Legion of Superheroes,
Hmm.
and it kept making better versions of itself until it almost took over the entire planet. Yeah, so I mean,
Yeah, and the
yeah,
Matrix, the
in the
Matrix
Yeah.
Matrix, yeah,
thing.
Yeah.
It's not that far fetched.
No, no. I mean, I think, in my opinion of it, also, it's like stealing. Also, like if you ask Chat GPT to like make a Michael Jan Friedman book, like it's basing it on your work. So it's
Right.
it's sort of like
Yeah, that's
stealing
a
from
very
it's
good
like
point. Yeah,
stealing from you, but not stealing from you. I mean, it is stealing from you.
It is.
it
You
is.
know, you're right. You're right. It is stealing. If they're like I said, if they're writing a Hemingway book, you know, in his voice and using his motifs, you're right. It is stealing. It's true.
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Plagiarism on a grand scale.
yeah, plagiarism on a grand scale. I don't know how they're going to I mean, yeah, I mean, aside from consumers choosing not to buy that stuff, they have to find a way to I don't know how they're going to do it, but to regulate it so artists who are, if you're saying let's write me a Michael Jan Friedman script with art by Jack Kirby, like you're taking on two people's artists' works and trying to make it off as your own. There has to be something to
Right.
do that. It's
Right.
not, but probably the biggest thing is consumers just not paying for that kind of stuff.
Right. Right. I mean, I think that's that's what has to happen. Um, you have to have not just the writers and the artists making that decision, but the people who read their stuff have to make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yes, definitely.
because
Well, it's
otherwise
yeah,
you get to a point and it's nothing but AI.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
AI feeding AI.
Yeah.
Well, let's remedy that as we wrap up, and you can go to Michael's Kickstarter, Thelas and Other Stories, and you can support a well known writer doing his craft, and you can go to Crazy Eight Press too, right? And you have a whole bunch of authors doing their craft too, right,
Yeah,
Michael?
there's 10 of us, all different, but all great writers, and you know, we have anthologies that bring in yet other writers who are also terrific. And you know, you can reach us at crazy8press.com. Um, and these, what's different about, you know, Thelos and also about all our other Crazy Eight books, of which we have about more than 70 now in inventory,
Wow.
more than 70 titles. Um, what's great is that these are our most authentic visions. These are the books we would like to read, and so when you read, you know, for instance, when you read a Star Trek book that I've written, it's me, but it's me playing in that playpen, you
Mm.
know, me playing in that um, sandbox, and it's interesting, and I would find it interesting. But when you buy a Crazy Eight book, you're getting the book that that writer wanted to write, um, and where and you know where and publishers would probably not publish because you know they need to sell tens and hundreds of thousands of
Mm-hmm.
copies, and we don't. So we come up with stuff that, like for instance, the last book that the last solo project that I kickstarted was about a 21st century Aztec Empire noir murder mystery,
Mm.
right, called Aztlan. And you know, I once brought that to a friend of mine who is an editor at a major science fiction house, and I said, you know, it's kind of an alternate reality thing. And she goes, I love this. This is great. I love this idea. When you publish this, I want to read this. She goes, on the other hand, I can't buy this because, you know,
God.
what would I, you know, what would a bookstore buyer think of this? It's like, you know, his head would explode. So he wouldn't know where to put it in the store. Is it a mystery? Is it an alternate history? Is it, you know, what the hell is this thing? But at Crazy A Press, we can do that. We can do the thing that we really wanted to do, regardless of, you know, the exigencies of the publishing world.
No, it's fantastic. Well, audience listeners, please go check out the current Kickstarter. We'll have a link on the Facebook page. I'll put it on Instagram. Mike's got it on his Facebook page. And please check out Crazy Eight Press and all the other writers and all their works, and dive into that. And Mike, I just have to tell you, thank you so much for coming back on the show. We really always enjoy having you on.
Well, thank you, and thank you for helping me get the word out about the Kickstarter campaign.
You're welcome.
Absolutely.
Michael.
Any projects you have or Crazy Eight, yeah, please come back on anytime.
Okay, you got it.
And Joe, thank you for being here.
Oh, it was great. Thank you. Thanks again, Michael. This was a real treat.
Sure. My pleasure, Joe.
And listening audience, thank you for joining us. If you have enjoyed this conversation, please go support all the products and works, and not just the Kickstarter works and the Crazy Eight works, but you can go check out the Star Trek novels we've talked about. Mike's got a huge catalog of books you can dive into. So that would be all our recommendations for this week in this episode, is just take one of his books, preferably the Kickstarter, but any of his books would be good. And if you have any reactions to this episode, please let us know in the Facebook group, on Instagram, or you can email us at secretoriginsmc@gmail.com. We thank you for listening, and we will talk to you on the next episode.